Welcome to One Tech World. My name is Vanessa Vallely. During this session, I'll be discussing PwC's new Essential 8 Technologies report, what you need to know for 2025 and beyond. The Essential 8 Emerging Technologies report details the transformative tech shaping businesses today. In this session, I'm delighted to be joined by visionary leaders Rob McCargow and Rosie Hall, who are going to be providing expert insights into the real-world application of these innovations, including AI, blockchain, IoT, and more. We're going to explore how these technologies are driving digital transformations, their impact on various industries, and the ethical challenges that they pose. Rosie, Rob, welcome.
Thanks, Vanessa. Great to be here for One Tech World.
Thank you. Thank you for joining me. So before we get going, let's just have a little bit of background on you both. I'm going to start with Rosie and then I'll move on to Rob.
Brilliant. Thanks, Vanessa, and thank you for having us. Delighted to be here. So my name's Rosie. I'm a Technology and Innovation Director at PwC in the UK. And a big part of my role is focusing on how we harness technology to get ahead of disruption and drive sustainable growth. And a big part of that is then unpicking different emerging technology trends and the business model implications of those trends, which is what we're going to talk about today.
Fantastic. And did you start your career in technology?
I didn't actually. I started my career in management consulting and through various twists and turns have found my way into the technology space. And really what I get excited about and a lot of energy about is bridging the gap between business strategy and the problems that businesses exist to solve and how we can harness technology in new and exciting ways to solve them.
Fantastic. Thank you. Rob, give us a little bit of background on you.
Thanks, Vanessa. Yeah, again, great to be here. So I've been in the firm at PwC about 10 years now. I'm a technology impact leader. I was one of the first people into our fledgling AI business about 9 years ago. So I've been a huge enthusiast for this technology, looking at the impact on business, on workforces, but also on the broader picture on society, at a policy level with government and beyond. So it's been an interesting journey, and as we'll find out today, the last year or two in particular has been especially exciting.
Fantastic. And for those of you watching, Rob is actually one of WeAreTechWomen's award winners, a true ally for women. So do look him up on LinkedIn as well. But we'll come on to contact details later. So let's get started on understanding the report. And I'm going to come back to you, Rob. Can you give us a brief overview of the Essential 8 technologies and why were these particular technologies identified as being the most impactful?
So we first looked at this concept in 2016 and trying to work out across effectively a range of 250 technologies we were testing in our various labs around the world, which ones would have the most transformative effect on business, both in the short term and in your longer term strategy. And it was a good exercise. It felt like it was a bit more future gazing, a bit more theoretical at that particular inflection point. I think what we have seen with the advent of the pace of progress with a number of these technologies over the course of the last 2 years, it required a bit of a refresh to understand ramifications right here and now and what the critical decisions that business leaders need to take. What we did is therefore a refresh of the technologies themselves, but a categorization of the, I guess, 3 different buckets they fall within. So first of all, we looked at the ones that we recommending are essential to expand. These are technologies already very much in the enterprise, being adopted at scale, but now is the time to be doubling down on this. And we can talk about that later, but the 2 that particularly feature in that category are artificial intelligence, of course. We'll spend some time talking about that, and also IoT, Internet of Things. The next category we wanted to posit was around this concept of ones that we need to evaluate, ones that have been around for a while. Possibly organizations have been looking at some of these in their innovation labs, but for whatever reason might have been backburnered. They might have not necessarily been scaled into sort of strong business-wide use cases. So the ones in that bucket are things like blockchain, which we'll talk about today, virtual reality, but also its sister in augmented reality, and into advanced robotics. And then finally, the category we're talking about around the essential to experiment with. These are ones that haven't quite hit the mainstream. You are seeing increasing amounts of buzz coming out of academia and being referenced far more in business and technology press, that we believe now is the time to be starting to get your hands dirty with them At the top of that queue, absolutely, is quantum computing. Been some remarkable breakthroughs in the last few weeks alone, actually, and on the build up to this conference. And also one as a scientist by background, neuromorphic computing, which even blows my brain, literally in more ways than one. So we're going to focus on quantum for the benefits of the audience today. Now, just to expand further on this, really, the reason why I think we're talking about these emerging technologies more than just a sort of futurism topic is that another comparable survey we do every year for the last 28 years is our CEO survey. We launch at Davos at the World Economic Forum. And what we've seen year after year after year are the number of chief executives in this survey. We survey about 5,000 globally, that said that without a fundamental change to their business model, large proportions of them don't even see their business will be economically viable within 10 years. And therefore, what levers do you have to pull to do true business reinvention? And this really is starting to amp up the focus upon what the art of the possible and the art of the practical is with this array of technologies we're talking about today.
Fantastic. And I think for those of you watching, in terms of where does your future career go, what skill sets should you be looking at, what does the future look like, 100%, this is why this session is so important, because you should have your finger on the pulse in terms of what's coming down the track. So Rob, staying on the AI and ethics side, obviously there's a major focus on it within the Essential 8. What are the ethical considerations that companies could keep in mind when they're implementing AI solutions? Big question on everyone's lips, right, around ethics and AI.
Absolutely. It cross-cuts so many topics, whether it's in the workforce, in careers of the future, risk, trust, and all the big buckets. And if you're, again, back into the C-suite shoes at the moment, a survey, again, of ours shows that 70% of them believe that generative AI specifically will significantly change their business, not in 10 years, but within 3 years. There's this huge pressure from your board and your stakeholders to start adopting this tech at scale. That brings a vast treasure trove of opportunity, which we are keen to look at. And I'm inspired constantly by the opportunities here being applied to things like healthcare, climate change, providing equity and helping more people to get banked that are unbanked at the moment. The use cases, the upside are enormous. The problem within this, Vanessa, I think, is the fact that if we race headlong into this without the right foresight, without the right guardrails in place, then we will never see those opportunities because we'll be hamstrung with the downside of this technology. And unfortunately, we've seen it around AI specifically for too long, where this has led to deleterious implications, whether it's been around adversely affecting people from different groups in society or in your workforce, leading to poor outcomes around unfairness. But I think more broadly, the bit that also captures organizations' attention and increasingly more of mine and Rosie's time and colleagues will be not just with your CIO or CTO, but speaking to all parts of your C-suite and the board and the chair of these boards, because they realize now the responsibility and duty placed upon them is how do you put the right level of governance in place? How do you ensure there's a right level of human oversight? This is actually, there is a technology point to this around some of the technical tools and techniques we can do to, for example, debias data sets, to validate models to make sure they're operating consistently and performing effectively. But the human factor is so significant in this, and therefore at the top of the list is the changing characteristics of what I think a technologist of the future looks like. You and I have been doing these conferences for many a year, and it was only 3, 4, 5 years ago we were saying everyone should down tools and retrain to be engineers, programmers, coders, data scientists. And we've seen since the advent of generative AI and agentic AI, that's been totally radically transformed. So this is a great opportunity for people coming into the workplace. In mine and Rosie's respective teams, we've got people from philosophy backgrounds, we've got ethicists, easy to say with my teeth in this morning. But beyond that, the whole plethora of different backgrounds now makes for a much more vibrant team, producing better products. And probably one of the fastest growing areas is for linguists, because prompt engineering, getting the best performance out of these large language models now is a red hot topic. So really interesting opportunity for people who maybe not had previously thought themselves as a technologist to make substantial impact for good, to put the trust back into this technology, to apply it to good use cases.
Absolutely. Hopefully solving the problem that we've got around not enough women in tech, because we can draw from all of these other industries. It's really interesting what you're saying, because it is revolutionary, right? Generative AI, but it requires regulation, it requires governance. And obviously we're just not there at that particular point. So with opportunity comes the risk at the same point. Rosie, I want to talk to you a little bit about blockchain beyond cryptocurrency. So blockchain is often associated with cryptocurrency. They kind of go hand in hand, but its potential extends far beyond that. What are some of the innovative ways that companies are leveraging blockchain?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, cryptocurrency is often the topic, as you say, that first comes to mind, but there are some really interesting use cases that have taken off beyond cryptocurrency around digital identity, supply chain transparency, and I'll come on to those in just a second. I think if we just kind of take a step back and go, what is blockchain? So blockchain is a decentralized digital ledger that records transactions in a secure, transparent, and kind of tamper-proof way without the need for a central authority. And I'm going to kind of double click onto a couple of words there just to bring to life some of the business model implications around that. So, decentralized, actually that means that not one central authority kind of owns that data and owns those transactions. Actually, everyone participating in the blockchain has the ability to access those. From a transparency perspective, they're able to trace those back to origin. It's an open record, and actually once the records have been added and verified, they can't be changed. So from business model implication perspective, the disintermediation of products and services, particularly where things are being verified or checked, what can blockchain do for that? But there's also a new forms of value exchange, right? Whether that's digital assets, you're seeing interesting use cases in loyalty, and actually they're putting the power kind of back in the user's hands of what they do with their data and capturing some of the value of how their data is used. So it's really interesting from a business model implication perspective. Let me bring that to life with a couple of tangible use cases. So first one that I find super interesting is digital identity. Now, if you think about as an individual, when you're using digital services online, whether it's social media, whether it's in relation to government, health, it could be anything, online shopping, think about the number of logins and passwords that you have, right? I know my list is probably 100 plus, and I'm sure people are the same, right? So you have lots of different digital identities, and they're fragmented, and actually you don't often own that data. That data often sits in a central database owned by each organization for who that digital identity is for. And blockchain is a really interesting solution to that in terms of a kind of more integrated digital identity, and kind of giving individuals an ownership over what personal information is shared. So there's some interesting use cases in terms of health records. So think about the number of different health providers, across the health ecosystem that you need to engage with, from kind of in the hospital to your GP to perhaps physio, then extending even into, adjacent industries like insurance. It's massive. So actually kind of a digital identity with your health record and being able to share that in an integrated, seamless way is a really interesting use case around blockchain, and actually, extension into a kind of state issued digital identity to access, government services. Again, all the different logins you need, from sorting out your parking permits when you're visiting someone through to engaging with HMRC. You can have lots of different digital identities to do that, and blockchain, actually there's some countries that have done some really interesting things around state issued digital identity to access digital services. So those are a couple of examples that bring it to life, and I really think blockchain has been around for a number of years now. It's becoming more and more established. As Rob described, it's in that essential to evaluate category, and there's been a lot of attention on AI, but I really think kind of going, right, what are the opportunities and also kind of threats from a business model perspective, to your organization when it comes to blockchain, and therefore where might you want to focus your efforts around this technology, and a bit later I'll come on to how they converge as well.
So I was literally going to say to you, okay, digital identity, everything you're saying, I'm absolutely sold. Sounds too good to be true. What's the risk? That was literally, my next kind of question. I don't know if you want to, just one key risk, if you think that's stopping people from, investigating a little bit further.
Yeah, I think, with these technologies, I think user adoption is a big one. So kind of there's a massive cultural shift there. And I think, going from centralized kind of data ownership sitting within an organization to kind of completely decentralized, again, a big cultural shift. And what does that look like? I think there's kind of some perhaps baby steps happening, but I think that's quite a big transition, and kind of the data privacy and security implications that come with that.
Absolutely. Good. Okay. Right. Let's come to quantum. So this was kind of up there in the list to look at, I believe. So quantum computing, obviously, it has the potential to revolutionize industry by solving problems classical computers struggle with. I remember covering quantum on here on One Tech World about 4 years ago, and everyone was like, what's this? What is it? So what is quantum computing, and what are some of the real world business applications that we're using this technology to explore?
Yeah, well, I think kind of even 4 years down the line, quantum is still quite a mind-boggling concept to get your head around, but it's actually very timely because the UN, I believe, have named 2025 the year of quantum science and technology, and there's definitely a lot of momentum and investment picking up around quantum. So it's a great time to revisit it. I think, quantum is a paradigm shift when it comes to technology and technology scientific development. And it's based on the principles of quantum mechanics, which is basically explaining how things work at the smallest scale, so at atoms and subatomic level. Now, I'm not the right person to go into the details of how that works. I do not have a physics background, but there's a couple of things like kind of what does that mean? So unlike classical computers, quantum computers can exist in multiple different states at once, and they can also be deeply connected even when far apart. And really what that means is there is unprecedented computing power compared to classical computers when solving certain problems. And I think that word certain problems is really important. So quantum computing isn't going to replace classical computing per se, but there are certain problems that quantum computers will help solve a lot more efficiently, a lot more effectively, with a lot more insight than classical computers ever could. There's also security implications. So quantum technology has the potential to break current encryption methods. Obviously, cybersecurity is a massively big hot topic in boardrooms, across many organizations, and therefore what needs to be done to prepare for post-quantum cryptography is a really hot topic in the quantum world at the moment. And also kind of quantum sensing and imaging is another kind of quantum technology, which is being able to, for example, super precise medical imaging, because it's able to image things at an atomic and a really small level. So you kind of think you've got IoT devices at the moment using classical compute. What kind of sensors could you have out there in the world when quantum technology takes off? Again, mind-boggling to think about. It is fascinating. And again, a couple of use cases to dig into here. So one around route optimization in logistics, and this is an optimization challenge that classical computing can help solve for. So if you think about logistics companies, there's a huge, particularly those that operate on a global scale, there is a huge amount of variables in trying to determine the best logistics routes around the world, to optimize for delivery times, to optimize for cost, and a number of other factors. And actually what quantum computing can do is kind of process exponentially more different route combinations in versus kind of classical computers, and actually in seconds rather than kind of hours, days, months, however long it might take. And there's a lot of logistics companies exploring, okay, how do we use quantum computing to optimize global delivery routes, to reduce delivery costs, but also whilst kind of increasing the speed of delivery as well. There's another use case that I'll just bring to life around drug discovery and material science, which is then a simulation challenge. So currently, pharmaceutical companies, they spend huge amounts of money on R&D. It's very expensive and slow to simulate different kind of molecules, chemical reactions, etc. And quantum computing, because of its ability to explain things at such a small scale, is actually able to simulate those molecules and chemical reactions at an atomic level, and therefore make drug discovery a lot more efficient. So pharma companies are exploring, okay, what can quantum technology do to really accelerate R&D timelines? So hopefully those use cases bring to life a couple of examples that we can all relate to.
But also they're very exciting, right? Because, if we can get drugs to market quicker, we have less people in the world, we have more people in the world living longer, it's just absolutely fascinating. Quantum, I need to know more. So Rob, I mentioned earlier on around skills for the future and kind of, a flag out to everyone watching this, but I want you to go into a little bit more detail. So what skills do professionals need to thrive in a world that is being shaped by these essential 8? And what can businesses do, more importantly, to ensure that their workforce is prepared for kind of all these new technologies coming in?
I think the first thing I've learned the hard way, Vanessa, I think in the last 10 years of doing this is it's really hard to forecast these things. So take everything I say with a massive pinch of salt, because it'll be wrong in about a week's time, probably. So the answer is a bit of a cop-out in some respects. I did another event recently, and the chief exec on this panel I was on said that he is not actually looking at his strategy beyond 18 months. He's looking in 6 and 6 month increments, because the pace of change is just so radical that the strategy is out of date before it's even been printed off the printer. So really, agility is crucial. And when it comes to skills, the things we know for sure are, hey, curiosity. I know it's a bit of a sort of cliche, but unless you're really thoughtfully investing time into understanding how these things work, getting excited about how it makes a difference in your workflow and the things you do day in, day out, then you will be left behind, unfortunately. Let's be quite candid about this. But the good news is that the barrier to entry is substantially lower than it was before. You don't need to go and do a PhD in data science anymore to do this. The technology is in your phone, it's ready to play with right now, right here, in many cases, when it comes to things like AI. And so back to that point around the pace of change, the issue then is your boss doesn't know either. And therefore, a lot of these are bets. A lot of these are well-informed bets that are going to move the needle for these organizations, to future-proof them, to drive growth, make them more productive, and reinvent this underlying business model. And the best ideas are often sitting there in the workforce, not necessarily just in the CIO office, in the tech teams. So I'll be quite forward-focused on this. I'll be quite bold and progressive. And I would start looking for problems to solve and take them forward. Don't say no for an answer. Take it to the boss and ask for the opportunity to just have an experimentation with it. And I think that's the quickest way of learning. So rediscovering this kind of love of learning is crucial. Curiosity, ability to take comfort and confidence in rapid change in the direction of your own career is something to get excited about rather than to get fearful about. And those characteristics, they're not actually hard academic skills. It's more mindset, it's more outlook, and it's more a degree of bravery and boldness. They're the characteristics I think are going to be vital in the workforce of the future.
Yeah, absolutely. I've interviewed quite a lot of senior leaders for this conference, and curiosity is one that comes time and time again. And I think there's an element of agility within there, that we need to get my words out, may need to like flip on a sixpence to a different technology. I mean, you talked earlier on that we was pushing for developers. Now we've got things like low code, no code, right? So it's like every single day there's these tools that are at our fingertips that enables us to, go and work in a different area of tech. So
Well, on that point,
Hey.
Vanessa, and what Rob just talked about, I was just going to build on. I think, it sounds a bit perhaps cliched, but you have two choices, right? Which is you can lean in and shape the change and be part of that change, and no one has all the answers, or you can let the change be done to you. And I think it is quite, it's a choice that we all have. As I said, no one has the answers, but I think kind of leaning into the former is definitely the kind of mindset that Rob talked to, that will kind of chart a path for success.
Yeah, 100%. And I think obviously the people that are at this conference, 120 different things that we're talking about, they're leaning in. And I think that is really, really important. We are in charge of our own careers. So I'm going to finish off with you, Rosie, around looking ahead. Do you foresee any of the essential 8 technologies converging to create new opportunities or challenges for business? And how do leaders prepare for this?
Yeah, I mean, the answer is like 110% yes to them converging. And I think, it will reshape industries, reinvent business models as that happens. And let me bring to life what that could look like, again, in health, because I think it's such a relatable use case for us all. But, if you take AI, that the capabilities of AI can process real-time health data from IoT devices to help diagnose certain conditions preventatively. You've got quantum sensors that are able to kind of get more and more precise medical imaging, again, contributing to more informed diagnostics and actually preventative care and personalized treatment plans. And then if you throw blockchain into the mix alongside IoT, quantum, and AI, you then got digital identities around health, owning your own health records and being able to share those across the ecosystem and access health services in a really interesting way, or kind of new and interesting, kind of completely different to the way that we do today. And I think there's a few business model shifts there, right? So from reactive to proactive healthcare, and actually really valuing the value of data and what that can do to really support the positive health agenda. And I think also blurring traditional industry lines is a really important point. So there's spillover there into drug discovery, which we talked about with the quantum example. There's spillover into insurance. The industry boundaries really start to blur. So I think kind of how these things converge and how they impact different components of the business model is a really important component of your emerging technology journey and how you experiment and explore these. And I think there's huge opportunities for business that do kind of take on the challenge. So speed and efficiency from the use of these technologies, enhanced insights and decision making that you just don't get otherwise. The opportunities for new products and services and delivering value to consumers in new and interesting ways, and ultimately the competitive advantage that you get from all of those things. But it also comes with challenges, and actually Rob touched on a few of these in the last question he answered. So the pace of change is just, it's incredible, and it's only increasing, and therefore there's lots to wrap our heads around in business right now in terms of the impact of that. So kind of how do you navigate that effectively? Rob also kind of touched on skills. I think some of the challenges around the skills gap and how the the shape and the skills of the workforce are evolving kind of increasingly rapidly as well. And then there's also kind of data privacy, ethics, responsible innovation considerations. I think kind of in terms of the question on advice to leaders, there's a few key things that I would say. So one is focus, where are the biggest opportunities and vulnerabilities, looking on both sides of the coin in terms of the problems that you solve, and then understanding the impacts of the emerging technologies on solving those problems. I think experiment, again, Rob talked about a lot of these things, kind of going from theory to practical, rolling up your sleeves, testing, learning, and as part of that, really tapping into the ecosystem. So, I believe personally that no one organisation can solve these big problems alone, and actually tapping into the ecosystem. I spent some time recently with the National Quantum Compute Centre, and they've got some amazing relationships from academia through to kind of hyperscalers around compute infrastructure, through to industry engagement, and actually being able to tap into that ecosystem to help your you on that journey is key. And I think the last thing that I would say is look beyond the core. You know, we all spend the majority of our time thinking about how we deliver business today, our core business, you know, with the commercial models that it entails, with the current products and services, and actually being able to create the time and space to step back, look beyond that and think about, like, you know, how will these problems be solved in the future? Who will we be solving them for? And, you know, it is a more uncertain world. You don't have the same level of certainty as you do in running your core business, but taking a portfolio approach, as Rob said, spreading your bets and experimenting, testing, learning quickly will be really key to that.
Absolutely. And taking from that, you know, that collaboration is absolutely key with all of it. Rob, anything final you want to come in before we close?
Yeah, three quick points to wrap up, Vanessa. I think back to Rosie's point around the leaders listening to this who might not be coming from a technology background. How you are role modeling the adoption of these technologies is crucial to how that actually cuts through the rest of your enterprise. One thing we've started doing at our place is appointing tech reverse mentors to our senior leaders.
Yeah.
Often these people are from our tech degree apprentices. They are vastly more digitally savvy than our board members, and that's really starting to have a strong cut through. They can ask the hard questions in a safe environment to get themselves up to speed quickly. So have a look at doing reverse mentoring schemes. I would just finish with a couple of points though. I think first things first is don't wait for this to be given to you. Don't wait to think there's going to be this perfect training course about to drop into your calendar next week. It won't be happening. There'll be different companies will attack it from different angles. There'll be different approaches to exposing staff to these sorts of tools, etc. But there's no excuse now not to just get busy with doing it. And finally, the bit that I'd really, I guess, challenge everyone to try to find, so obviously I'm AI biased with my background, is find your AI aha moment, that moment that just takes your breath away when you task it with something in your life. In my case, do a lot of talks, you know, it might be sort of writing a speech for me or something like that. And if you then see like the transformative impact of it in something you do day in, day out, that's the moment you become a believer rather than a skeptic. Yeah. So just get busy with doing it and find that aha moment.
Absolutely. I couldn't live without generative AI at all. I mean, it has completely changed my world. You know, in terms of, as you say, Rob, the things that you want to write when you're having a day where you just can't muster the words together, and it just beautiful. Obviously needs a sense check, but it is the thing that sits by the side of my desk that makes me productive. So absolutely get involved. So Rob and Rosie, it's been so insightful talking to you. Where can people download the report from? Is that available publicly?
Yeah, we get that on pwc.com, and we can share this with you afterwards, Vanessa, for the conference website too.
Fantastic. So obviously you can find both Rosie and Rob on LinkedIn. Do follow them. They share some amazing things. And just thanks again. Thank you, I say, very, very insightful. And for those of you watching, this is great stuff. This is the stuff we should be looking at as we kind of look forward into our careers. Get involved, find the networks, find the people to follow, and above all, remain curious. So I'll leave you on that note. Thank you both very much for joining me.
Thanks, Vanessa.
Cheers.